Whakarongo ake au ki te tangi a te manu nei a te mātū i tuia. Tuia i runga, tuia i raro. Tuia i roto, tuia i waho. Tuia te here tangata kārongo te ao, kārongo te pō. Tuia te muka tangata i takea mai i Hawaii ki nui, Hawaii ki roa, Hawaii ki pāmamao, te hono ki wairua, ki te whai ao, ki te ao mara mati hei mauri ora. Tuia te tiriti o Waitangi ki te hinengaro o te kaiako. Tuia te tiriti o Waitangi ki te hinengaro o te akonga. Tuia te tiriti o Waitangi ki te mātauranga tuatoru. Tuia ki runga, tuia ki raro. Tuia ki roto, tuia ki waho. Tui, tuia. He ngā iwi o ngā hau e whā, ko hono mai nei tātou i te rānei, i runga i te reo karanga o Ako Aotearoa, nau mai, piki mai, haere mai. Haere mai rā ki tēnei wānanga, ipurangi, kia Tuia Te Ako. Kia ngai tangata whenua, kia ngai tangata tiriti, tēnā koutou. Tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Tēnā rā tātou i o tātou mate tuatini. Nāu i tangi ake, nāku i tangi ake, nā tātou katoa. I greet you as tangata whenua and as tangata tiriti as the two partner groups under Te Tiriti o Waitangi. But first, let us pause in memory of those, our dearly departed ones who have recently passed on from this world. Moi mai rā koutou. And so welcome everyone to the first in the series of 3 monthly Wednesday lunchtime webinars entitled Titiro Whakamuri, Titiro Whakamua, Looking to the Past and Looking to the Future. Today's webinar is Teaching Te Tiriti, Walk the Talk with Integrity and Courage. Webinar 2 on the 24th of September is on Teaching Te Reo Māori and will feature Prime Ministerial awardees of the Whatikairangi Awards, Hiria Tumuana and Enoka Murphy. Webinar 3 is on 15th of October and is on Teaching Māori Learners, and that features Phil Alexander Crawford. Over recent years, Ako Aotearoa has embarked on an extensive professional learning and development program targeted particularly at Tangata Tiriti. The suite of mainly online workshops has attracted hundreds, in fact thousands of educators from the tertiary sector. Today's presenters include the manager of this program and an expert Tangata Tiriti treaty trainer. They will reflect on the Tiriti o Waitangi suite of programs provided by Ako Aotearoa in recent years, then look to the future through new initiatives supported by Ako Aotearoa in association with AWEA, Auckland Workers Education Association, like the new online Tiriti course and a Tangata Tiriti-led community of practice, which people will be able to explore from today. He wei anō, ka huri rā kia tātou manuhiri kai kōrero, and so I now turn to our guest speakers for today. And so firstly we have Ruth Peterson. Tēnā koe Ruth. Tēnā kōrero tia mai tō pepeha. Ruth, can you recite us your pepeha, please?
Tēnā koutou. Ko tāko ingoa ko Ruth Peterson. Ko tāko wahi tipu ko Thames. Ko tāko wahi noho ko Tamaki Makaurau. Ko te monga ko Mangawhau. Ko taki wahi mahi ko Ako Aotearoa. Ko o kai whakahaere ratonga mataranga tai tokoro. Nō reira, tēnā koutou katoa.
Tēnā koe Ruth Karawe. And we now turn to Dean Adam. Tēnā koe Dean.
Tēnā koe Joseph.
Tēnā kōrero tia mai rā, tō pepeha. Dan, can you please recite us your pepeha?
Kia ora tātou. E whānau mai ahau, e Aotearoa, e te puaki ahau, e Wairepa, me te pāpaka o Maui. Kei mongarei taku kāinga, ko Pākehā taku iwi. Nō reira, tō Dean Adam taku ingoa. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa.
Ka rawe, Dean. Tēnā koe, ka rawe. The third speaker, who is unfortunately unable to be with us today, is Christine Herzog, and I'll just speak briefly about her later on, giving you a bit of her background, because she's had a critical part to play in the whole this whole Tiriti journey that we've been on. But today's presentation is in three parts, so it'll be kicked off by Ruth, who will take the first 20 or so minutes, followed by Dean, who will take the next 20 or so minutes, and that'll lead us up to 1 o'clock, at which time we will have a Q&A session, question and answer. But meanwhile, to start us off today, then I introduce you more fully to Ruth Peterson, who is Sector Services Manager for our Northern region. She has been pivotal in organising regional forums and collaborative professional networks for educators. She has been a strong advocate for learner-centred and culturally responsive pedagogies. She has helped design, has managed, and has championed the suite of Tiriti courses offered by Ako Aotearoa. I've worked with Ruth for the last 9 years, and I'm really proud of her efforts in bringing the Tiriti of Waitangi to the conscience, let's say, of educators in the tertiary sector. Nā reira, over to you, Ruth. The floor is now yours.
Kia ora, Joe. I'm going to be talking about the treaty courses that we have developed since 2020, which just give you a bit of a background to those, because we weren't initially thinking that Te Tiriti was in our domain of building capability in tertiary educators. However, if we could have the next slide, Catherine, please. In 2019, we analysed feedback that you gave us about a workshop we were offering, which was titled Kia Iki Kiti Taumata. It was about creating a kaupapa Māori classroom environment designed to enhance success for your Māori learners. Now, after this workshop had been delivered for quite some time, with a lot of people had attended the workshop, but we looked at the feedback that you'd given us and analysed it. You told us that the jump to these ideas of creating a kaupapa Māori classroom was a little bit too high. You needed something more foundational first. We discussed this at length, and in the end, we realised that the missing part was a much more detailed understanding of the treaty relationship than had been present in Kia Iki Kiti Taumata, which was just a minimal part of that session. So we contacted the group of expert treaty educators that we knew, Christine Herzog, of course, being the leader of that group. And we discussed with them the idea that what we wanted was an introductory workshop. As we looked at the people that we thought might attend, we thought the range would be fairly broad. There would be people who had come to New Zealand with little or no knowledge of our treaty, but perhaps had experienced treaties in their own countries. There would be people who had perhaps attended some treaty workshops over the years that they'd been in education. There would be people who had gone beyond that and done considerable reading of the vast amount of literature there is around the Treaty of Waitangi. And so a slightly difficult decision was made, and that was to create a basic treaty workshop, an introductory workshop to treaty, but enable discussion in it so that the richness of other people's experience and ideas could be incorporated into it. And over the years, with all of our professional learning and development workshops, we know that what you value highly is that cross-pollination of ideas among yourselves, and that's a really key part of any sessions that we run. Prior to the onset of our COVID lockdowns, we were running mostly face-to-face workshops. As we went into lockdown, we realised that to continue our work, we would need to deliver online. And so we began the series that now is mostly delivered online in a 3-hour session. 3 hours is a considerable amount of time, of course, to sit looking at a screen. However, we incorporated some lengthy breaks, and what has happened since is that not only our original Te Tiriti visual history for Tangata Tiriti, but a second workshop was delivered, Te Tiriti, a visual history for Tangata Whenua only, and I'll address that matter in a moment. But over time, we found that there was a call for a treaty workshop to help people that were developing policy and procedures too. And so a third workshop was developed called Te Tiriti for Organisational Management. And then as more requests and feedback were received, we developed the 2 workshops at the top of this list, addressing racism in tertiary education and applying equity in tertiary education. We did offer Tiriti as a bespoke workshop, and were very happy to customise to people's requests whenever that was needed. So that is the suite that we have been delivering over these years. The people who have been delivering on our behalf have been, firstly, Christine Herzog, a woman with a tremendous repository of knowledge about treaty, and her work has been very much appreciated by people. Heather Kame Fryer was one of the original people too. She was an academic who worked at that time at AUT University. She has since then moved down to Wellington and is still continuing with a lot of work around treaty and racism. Catherine Delahunty was another expert treaty educator who came into our fold. And these people we owed a huge debt to, because we were running a lot of treaty workshops. Later, Christine Herzog trained Richard Green, and more recently still Dean Adam, who you'll hear from shortly, was also brought into the treaty group of educators. These people have done a huge service for Ako Aotearoa and for you as tertiary educators. As we look at the numbers of people who have completed treaty, we see that these numbers on the screen are the totals. So 2,500 of you, more than 2,500 of you, have completed these workshops over these 5 years. And we're very proud of the fact that we did bring this workshop into our program of professional learning and development. Sometimes people did this as individuals, but almost as often, whole groups and organisations did it together and were able to take their learnings perhaps in a more powerful way into their organisations. Some did it to refresh their knowledge, others did it with little knowledge, as I've said before, and still others did it because they simply enjoyed the discussions and ideas as things shifted over time. Attitudes towards treaty did shift. What I'd be interested in seeing would be if Ko quite a number of you here today were among those who attended those workshops. So if you were, could you please hit the react button on your screen and send us a love heart? That would be enormously encouraging. Just looking in detail at who attended these sessions. For the introductory session on Te Tiriti of Waitangi, this pie chart shows that the private sector was dominant, with the ITO world coming in next, mainly because of their induction into Te Pūkenga. Those who were organising the workforce development side of things, made our treaty workshops, all of them actually, the treaty suite, part of the induction. So there were many people in the ITO sector who completed those workshops. You'll be interested to see that list yourselves and see just exactly what the spread has been. On the next slide, we look at those who attended the treaty workshop for Māori. Now, I said I was going to talk about this a little bit because it did create some debate. Some people would say to us, well, we don't want to make that distinction between our Māori staff and our non-Māori staff. However, the view that we were holding was that the perspective for each of those groups was different. Those of us who were Tangata Tiriti, we needed to know what the relationship with Māori was intended to be. And so we offered a workshop separately for Tangata Tiriti, but for Tangata Whenua, it was different again. And so we employed Daniel Tawhai, who was able to conduct the workshop for Māori with a smattering of Te Reo language in it as well. And the feedback that we received from those who took that option up was very positive. Many of them said, we have never had a workshop that was designed specifically for us before, and we really loved it. So you can see that here, the spread was fairly even. Universities, ITOs, PTEs, polytechs, workforce development councils, ACE people and others attended this workshop. Our addressing racism in tertiary education was interesting because it was mainly the university sector that dominated that session. ITOs were close behind, and then the PTE world. Just make a comment about PTEs at this stage that some of them have said to us in recent times that they don't have the capacity to develop their own professional learning and development, and they have been very appreciative of the professional learning that Ako Aotearoa has been able to provide over this last, particularly in the last 5 years. Applying equity, it's a little bit more evenly spread, I think, perhaps because people may have felt that addressing racism suggested that they were racist themselves and didn't want to do a workshop that was about addressing that. However, the view taken by our treaty educators was that situations can occur in our tertiary organisations that are difficult for us to deal with when we see racism in one form or another occurring. And if there are some strategies that keep everybody safe, then that's something useful that we could provide, and so we did. Treaty for Organisational Management. Now, this was an interesting one because by and large, this was taken up only by the auditors for universities. They were the ones that were looking at policies and procedures and how treaty could be embedded by the university sector. So those auditors did come from a range of organisations themselves, but by and large it was the auditors that did it. And finally, the last slide that shows attendances was our Treaty Bespoke in-house workshop. As I said before, the PTE world has been very grateful for the professional learning and development that Ako Aotearoa has provided over the years. And they were the ones that we would often discuss, what are your specific needs in relation to treaty? And so the workshop would be customised for them. So going on now to looking at what the feedback said, and just reminding you that the feedback came from this number of people across all of these different offerings. So let's have a look at a sampling of it. The voices from the courses. So the first one talks about confronting their own assumptions. The second one about the fact that many of us stay in a neutral position, but actually that's a position of privilege. Thirdly, it's not just about history, it's about how we lead today. And then we're all treaty partners. That means shared power, not symbolic gestures. Again, it's not a Maori issue, it's an Aotearoa issue. We are all responsible. I used to tick the box. Now I ask, who am I in partnership with? Then treaty is about relationships, not compliance. And this one, genuine partnership means giving up control, not just offering consultation. I have a few more. Finally, we begin to see that quite a lot of people were requesting a workshop to tell them how to apply treaty to their work. We recognise that this might be quite different for everyone, and although we discussed how can we develop a workshop for this, we decided in the end that the concept of a community of practice was the right one. People said this wasn't just information, it was a call to act. And so a community of practice enables people to develop ways that they can act, how they can review their assessment policies through a treaty lens, and how they design learning to embed treaty ideas in there. So I think at this point, I'll hand over to Dean to explain how we've developed this idea of a community of practice.
So shortly we're going to turn to Dean, but let me introduce him more fully. You will notice Dean's got a blanket around him, so he's obviously not very well, but he's a real trooper, and here he is, despite being quite ill. So Dean Adam has experience facilitating anti-racism and Te Tiriti or Waitangi workshops with government agencies, health providers, and community organisations. With over 30 years of experience in public health, community development and research, he has led regional programs promoting equity and social justice. Dean has worked with the Auckland Workers Educational Association, AWEA, for several years to foster treaty-based practices and research. He has also contributed to policy reform and delivered capability building programs focused on embedded cultural responsiveness in organisations. So that's Dean, but I'll just take this moment also to introduce Christine Herzog in her absence, and she's unwell as well. And she is with Ruth, and Dean has made a contribution to our treaty program. I heard you say Herzog, Ruth, so I'll say Herzog. I hope that's the correct pronunciation. Christine Herzog spent 15 years at Manukau Institute of Technology, where she set up the Treaty Education Unit. In 2004, she became coordinator at the AWEA, where she established the Treaty Resource Centre and the Related Cultural Matters Project. Christine has facilitated more than 1,000 treaty and related workshops and has also undertaken consultancy and published numerous articles relating to the application of the treaty in organisations. She was a founding member of Auckland Project Waitangi and continues to be active in Tamaki treaty workers. So again, we pay, I acknowledge Christine Herzog for her wonderful work, as with Ruth and as with Dean, in being advocates for Te Tiriti or Waitangi in Aotearoa. So I will now pass the time over to you, Dean, and kia kaha, kia maia, kia manawa nui.
Thank you. I'll just share my screen. Hopefully everybody is seeing my slides there now. I'll skip through our introduction since Joseph's done most of that very nicely for us. Welcome everybody. Aroha mai, koutou. I am kua mauiwi aho today, a little bit sick, but I'm really excited to be able to talk to you all today about what we've been working with Ako Aotearoa to develop. Some of this, a lot of this has come from Christine, so some of the particularly the longer history kind of comments, that they are shaped by her views of this for over the decades. But one of the most important concepts that shaped treaty learning and education in Aotearoa has been Ako. Often explained as reciprocal learning, the idea that teachers learn from students and students learn from teachers. For us, it's more than that. Just as a principle, it's the way that treaty education has grown. When we started teaching about Te Tiriti o Waitangi, we didn't have a perfect curriculum. In fact, we didn't really know how to teach it. It was only when people started trying to learn about it, asking questions, challenging ideas, making connections to their own work, that we began to learn what worked in the education of Te Tiriti. So over decades in the ACE sector, adult and community education, we've had the space to experiment, to be less formal, more learner-centred, responsive to the people in front of us. And that flexibility meant we could adapt content, activities and approaches in real time based on feedback and reflection. So that's the concept of Ako has been essential in the ACE sector and for us to be able to build treaty education in the way we have. The nice thing about that is now the formal education sector is starting to benefit from that work. We've trialled approaches, made mistakes, learned from students, and build a base of experience that's ready to be integrated into more structured programs without losing that learner-centred ethos. Ako isn't a one-way transfer of knowledge, it's a relationship, and treaty learning has been stronger because we've embraced that. It's definitely been a core part of how we've grown and learned. Ako Aotearoa has played a vital role in this. They didn't have to support the ACE sector in the way they have, but they have chosen to. And they've funded the development of resources, including the course we'll talk to shortly about the making sense of the treaty. Supported the Treaty Educators Network and websites. They've backed research into treaty education, developed the idea and encouraged the development of communities of practice concepts so educators could connect, share and grow together. They've hosted a lot of our resources on their site, giving visibility and credibility to the work, and provided a safe umbrella for new groups to step into treaty education without having to build everything from scratch. This ongoing support has strengthened the sector, and it's worth acknowledging, particularly now as the organisation looks to be established at the end of the year, how much we have benefited from that over time and what we may lose. With the support from Ako Aotearoa and the funding, we have been developing a course making sense of the treaty. This is a resource designed to give people the foundation they need if they're looking to put Te Tiriti into practice in their workplace or mahi. It's not a full history of the treaty. It's not a full, back in the day it used to be 3-week workshops. This is something self-directed learning that people can pick up and understand the core issues that they need to apply. The first modules are now live and available on our site. The later modules are still in progress. We'd hope to launch it all today, but we've been trying to prioritise getting them right over getting them out fast. There's a few design principles we've taken in this. Short talking head segments to keep attention. We're trying to have frequent activities and prompts to encourage thinking and reflection. But unfortunately we have fewer activities in the first section, so you won't see as much of this when we show it to you today as you will in the later sections 3 to 5. Mostly there's no pass-fail scoring. This isn't sort of about assessment, the emphasis we're trying to put on is about engagement and personal application. There is some sequencing of where activities build on each other, so you can't skip the groundwork. There have been delays, and Ako and Ruth have been very patient on this with us. As a Ako Tiriti organisation, one of our commitments has been to ensuring Te Reo Māori in the course met the expectations of our Māori partners, and we've done a lot of this work with AI avatars and text-to-speech, and getting the whakahua correct in that has been quite a challenge. And one, in some ways, we are still working through that. It has taken more time, but it was important to uphold our values in there. So we're going to show you a little bit of that today. Our call to action is to encourage people to try the early modules. Give us feedback, so building on that Ako concept, your feedback helps us improve, to learn what's working and improve. We've made it so everybody can view the site without logging in, just as a guest, but to do a lot of the activities you will need to register and create an account. But that's free, you better do it, jump online and have a look. So elearn.trc.org.nz is the link, and we'll share that out with through Ako Aotearoa after this. And this is the landing page you'll get to, and it gives you some of the background information about the course. Let's just jump to it now. And when we click into here, we jump in. We've used Moodle as our learning management platform, and we have the different sections down here on the right. And we start off with welcome, introduction, and why was the treaty wanted. So that's where we're up to now. So here's a quick example of the type of video content. It has been done on a bit of a shoestring, but we're still relatively happy with how it's starting to come together. So here's an example for you.
Welcome to an introduction to the treaty and concepts for putting it into practice. This is the pilot release of our 5-module course. From our launch on the 20th of August, you'll have access to modules 1 and 2, with the remaining modules being added over the coming months. Each module will guide you through key ideas and practical steps to help you think about how to put the treaty into practice in your work or workplace. Some aspects of the course are still evolving. For example, the way we introduce and work with AI facilitators and narrators such as myself. We're using this pilot phase to refine and finalize these elements before making the course available for organizations to use with their teams. Your feedback is a vital part of this process. As you explore the activities and content, please let us know what works well and what could be improved. We hope you enjoy your learning experience with us and look forward to learning alongside you.
So that's the introduction, and then underneath we have our 2 main sections. For those of you who've done workshops with Christine in the past, you'll recognise the wave. So we have that same type of introduction and exploration of the wave to understand positionality, and we take that through to the treaty, and we encourage some personal reflections there, which we come back to in module 6. And then the main part of the content at the moment is why was the treaty wanted, and we have 4 sections of that: cultural differences, AWEA arrival, managing the problems, and Crown policy changes. So these give you some people the foundation. I've just been sharing with some of the universities over the last couple of days of what were the events that leading up to, and challenging a lot of the myths around who the treaty was for and who wanted it. So that's available now. Would really hope that people would have a chance to explore it. In the welcome section, we've created a couple of forums. One is for announcements, where we'll let everybody who registers know when there are new modules added. Questions and feedback, so anything you want to let us know, something that's not working, something you liked, something you didn't like, you can chat about it in there. We've also created a glossary as we've gone. There's several terms that are important for understanding the treaty as you go forward. Rangatira, hapu, they're all kind of key concepts that we've outlined a little bit more there as well. So that's a quick whirlwind of the course. I hope people will take the chance to give us feedback, we'd really appreciate it. I'm just going to move on now to our second, I think, exciting branch of today. So this is a website. This is building off Joseph and Ruth's support for the concept of community of practice for the Treaty of Waitangi community. Before I get into it, I do want to talk a little about what we mean by community of practice. Many of you will know, but I just wanted to make sure we're on the same page. So key to a successful COP, there's some core elements. There's a group of people who share a common concern, interest, or passion, and want to learn how to do it better by interacting regularly. So we're not talking about hundreds of people coming together. We're talking about some people with a common interest that's with some clarity. It is built on Ako, reciprocal learning. Everyone has something to teach and something to learn. And it needs a shared space, not owned by one person, where the knowledge, tools, and relationships are developed together. So that's kind of important, so some of the features of community of practice. In the treaty space, a COP means connecting people working together to implement the treaty across regions, sectors, and experience levels, sharing practical resources, activities, and approaches that work, reflecting together on challenges, changes in context, and emerging opportunities, and encouraging innovation through trial, feedback, and adaptation, the same way treaty learning has been evolving in the ACE sector. The COPs address several challenges and opportunities for the treaty community. Treaty education thrives when we learn from each other's experience, particularly as it isn't really formal training for the things we're trying to do or teach. COPs help us take advantage of the strengths of our diversity as a community. For instance, using that ACE sector flexibility with the reach of the formal education sector with much stronger outcomes for learners. Perhaps most importantly, COPs help ensure learning isn't lost when projects end or people move on. So with that, today we are launching a new Treaty of Waitangi community website. We know there's lots of incredible kaimahi out there working hard, but in isolation in different regions, sectors and roles. There are people who might be trying to implement the treaty in their organisation, advocate for change in their community, have treaty education roles, or working to support treaty implementation in any number of other ways. We wanted to create a shared space where they could connect, share resources, discuss challenges, and collaborate. Just like Ako in the classroom, we need reciprocal learning between kaimahi, between experienced practitioners to be advancing their learning and to be supporting new people to the mahi. Inside the site, there's discussion forums on current treaty issues, a place to propose and collaborate on new sessions, workshops, things to talk to, dates for the workshops, hui, and learning sessions as they're created where you can RSVP, opportunities to propose and join focused communities of practice sessions where you can kōrero with others who have similar interests to you. I'm not going to do a full page-by-page tour. The best way to understand it, I think, is to jump in, start exploring it. I'll show you a couple of the main features you'll see when you visit the site. Once you're there, you can register, browse the discussion resources, post something, question, resource, reflection, or join, initiate a session or event. So this is what the site largely looks like, but I'm going to jump over to a live one. Everyone's seeing that, hopefully. Like our other site, at the moment I am logged in. You can see much of the site when you visit without registering, but some parts are only visible for the registered community members. Again, registration's free. We're not making money out of this. It's just a resource for everybody. You do need to provide a little bit of information about yourself and what you want from the site, though, as part of joining up. Once you've joined, you can comment on the sessions and RSVP to any confirmed sessions, participate in the forums, and any community of practice sessions set up. What we've taken here is that there's three core components to the site: learning and development sessions. This is almost a PD type approach. The communities of practice and how people are identifying their specific interest areas and joining, and then just a broader community hub where people can share ideas and As sessions are proposed and confirmed, they'll be shown here as upcoming events. So we do have one planned next month, and we're talking with Ruth Peterson and the other researchers who have done some of the community of practice research with Ako Aotearoa to work with us on talking more about communities of practice and the specifics of the treaty education and how we can make that work. We've set up some quick start guides here for people. Each one you can get guidance or take an action. And so the idea of sessions is they're an idea somebody has. Catherine proposed an idea for how do you inspire participants who'd rather be somewhere else. I think anyone who's done treaty education knows that sometimes you get people in the room who don't really want to be there. And so how do we learn from each other and share that? So all of these are ideas that somebody has had. At the moment, it's myself, Catherine, and Christine. We've got some other people working on ideas they're going to bring in. So we hope this will populate as we go. Over here we have tags. And so one of the things you can quickly do if you're interested in communities of practice is find the tag, click it, and that everything that relates to that. So if somebody has so we're proposing a treaty education community of practice, and there's a discussion there. For each of these, you can go in and people, if they're interested in it, I'd like to. But you can ask questions about it, and that's where we imagine there'd be a dialogue of somebody saying, well, actually, I'm really interested in this as well. Would you be okay with including nurse educators in this, or whatever the questions are? So it emerges. It gives the session host some feedback about what they could look like. And when they're ready, they can basically confirm the session becomes a public event in the calendar, and people can RSVP to it. So we've sort of got a workflow there from the ideas, from the concepts, having engagement, and then it becomes a session that you can RSVP to. The hub is the last kind of forum or dialogue element. Again, it's still a little bit light. We've had some people supporting us in the development of the site. Tangata Tiriti treaty people have been really helpful, along with Catherine at the basket. But all of these forums here are places for people, whether it's a sector or formal treaty sector, to come in and ask their questions, propose their issues, and encourage dialogue. We've also got some spots down the bottom just for if you've got questions about the site or feedback, that would be great to get from there. A little bit of information about the site, code of conduct, privacy policy. And then, just because we know everybody's coming into this with different familiarity with forums and online communities, we've tried to do a real I want to type approach to the help section. So we've tried to put a lot of guidance in here. But again, if there's any questions, please use the forum, ask us, and we would love to be able to help. So I think the call to action would be really to hope people would come in, see how it can be useful for you, and if there's things you would like to be able to do that this platform can help with, either just try doing it or ask us, and we'd love to be able to support it. It's the sort of thing that we think will work if people use it. So this is it's a bit of a Ako experiment. We are learning about what works. We believe this can work for the community and create dialogue and connection, both for people looking to implement the treaty and people working to do treaty education. So there's definitely a dual sector kind of approach. I think I've talked through most of that. So as I said, Ako is about learning together, and the formal and informal education sectors both bring strengths, but it's when we connect them together we see the biggest impact. Today, there's two ways you can keep that connection going. Explore our Making Sense of the Treaty course, try the modules, give us feedback, and help to refine the content and approach. Would really appreciate your support. Getting involved in the treaty education community practice, share what you know, learn from others, and build the community together. It's like every community, isn't it? If we don't reach out and say hi to our neighbours, we never connect. So just to end, a huge thank you to Ako Aotearoa for their ongoing commitment to implementing Te Tiriti, to treaty education, and reciprocal learning. Kia ora koutou. Thank you, Jason.
Karawe Dean, another fabulous presentation. Lots there for people to pick up and run with out there in the community, in the tertiary sector and beyond. So that's great. You've taken us to the website. We've looked at the Making Sense of the Tiriti course. We've seen the big range of courses you also offer, and also the potential for people to join or create a COP, community of practice. We don't have a lot of questions, but there is a particular one from Anne-Marie, and who was interested to hear your reasons for opting for AI facilitators. That's the question.
Yeah, tamahi. So that's a good one. And a little bit of budget. So one of just how can we make this as interactive as possible for people, create learner engagement. The original, we took the concept of a course that Christine's been delivering for some time, and a little bit of this is we wanted to make the course more accessible to everybody on their own timing, making it self-directed. So getting out of the Treaty 101 workshops and just having a resource we could send people to for the people who that format works for. So we took that content, but a lot of it is usually when you have one of us talking, you've got somebody to look at, and that provides a degree of engagement. We didn't want to record us because whenever we make changes, then we have to re-record. And so we were looking for a mechanism or format where we even just, we got some of this up, over the weekend, and we've looked at it and we want to change some things. And we imagine a lot of youth will all look at it and have amazing suggestions or questions that we hadn't thought of, and we'll want to be changing things. So one of the advantages we found with the AI facilitators is it allows us to be quite flexible in adapting and improving the content quite quickly. The trickiest part was the whakahua in that. If we were just going for kōrero Pākehā, it would have been a much smoother process. But it has been, there are some things there about the AI isn't perfect, but probably we like for what it does, and that it does feel a little bit more like you're talking to somebody rather than just a voice over a static image. So that was some of our thinking there. I'm definitely interested if other people have taken other approaches and some things that might work.
Papai Dean, that should be a sufficiently comprehensive answer to Anne-Marie, and who's shown her appreciation for you answering that. Well, I see there's something sitting in the chat from Alice. Well, I'll just read it anyway. Kia ora, Dean, great kaupapa, and thanks for your mahi. With the area of the site where training workshop ideas are offered or suggested by community members, is there a process to ensure the facilitators are reputable to develop the content?
Yep. Ngā mihi, Alice. Probably the main whakaaro in there is that this is peer-to-peer. These aren't to a community in terms of signing up. These are people that you may know or you're interested in it. And so like Heather came is working on a concept around a code of conduct for treaty educators. And so, she proposes that people will know her or they won't know her, and they may be interested in coming along. So we're not, it's not so much a course where that person's delivering it. It's very much as peer-to-peer, and you're coming along to share what you know, or somebody is sharing what they know, and people essentially vote with their feet. We were keen to not get in the position of accrediting people or saying that this person is, but it's very much not so much at the moment how the treaty kaumahi community sort of works. But it may be something that people start leaning into more themselves over time and sort of giving people feedback and growing. But no, not at the moment.
Okay. So you might like to have a look on our website in the Pātaka Mātauranga. You can find out more about all the various types of research we've conducted too. But however, I'm just going to go back to Ruth and to Dean and give them the last word in case they have any closing comments. We don't need to drag this out unnecessarily. It appears that you've covered the ground so well that there are very few questions. So again, for May's work, you could look at also on Pathways Awarua. Pathways Awarua is where you will find information about the multicultural capability and coaching courses. But so we're going to come right back to you, Ruth. You gave a great presentation. Do you have any closing words?
Kia ora, Joe. Not really. I just want to say thank you to the people that have come today to support us in what we're trying to do. I've really loved being part of the Mātauranga Māori team with Joe and May, and then of course with Dean and Christine as well. So it's been a real privilege to be part of this, and just want to thank you all for your support over these last 5 years that we've been doing the Treaty Suite. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Ruth. Ka nui te mihi kia koe. Dean.
Ngā mihi. I've just been taking the time to had a quick look at the website traffic just since we launched, and like Ruth, just thanks to everybody who's come. But what's really cool, I guess, for Joseph and Ruth is people are joining and seem excited about it, which is, seems very cool. That we hoped this would meet the need, and just from the people already joining in, it feels like that it seems on track.
Dean, there is one question there, and I think it's referring to, because Ako Aotearoa won't continue to, it's unlikely to continue providing the treaty program. So there may be some takers out there in the community who may be able to pick up on this work, or else AWEA will carry it all. So it's great that we have these wonderful resources out there. And so, so I'll bring our webinar to a close. But again, I thank you, all the people who joined us today. We hope you got some great value from today's webinar. And a special thank you to our guest speakers, Ruth Peterson and Dean Adam and Christine Herzog in absentia. Thank you for May joining, and for Catherine Leach for assisting with the PowerPoints and the technical aspects. So on that, I'd like just to close our hui I tēnei wā mā tēnei karakia poto nei. Mauri ora ki te rangi, mauri ora ki te whenua, mauri ora ki a tātou katoa. Kia ora mai rā tātou, ka mutu I konei.